Hello to everyone, distinguished participants of Istanbul Fintech Week. Today, we will talk about KYC with our valuable panelists and myself. And today, we are going to try and answer some questions which are frequently asked. And today, with us, we have Mr. Kadir Yücer from IHS Technology. Hello. And we have Yasin Kahramaner from Aksigner, and I welcome him as well. So I'd like to start right away. I would like to start with the first question. Who would like to answer? Let's start with you, Kadir Yücer. For you and for IHS İHA, what is digital onboarding? Digital onboarding, or in a way, remote onboarding of customers, is a process in the past, before digitalization was such a part of our lives. Sometimes you had to go physically to a building or premises of a company or to a branch, and you would start a commercial relationship remotely, physically, with a signature. But today, we can become customers of an institution, no matter where that institution is in the world. Certain long processes which challenged us in the past can now be handled in 3 or 5 minutes. It's a digital way of becoming somebody's customer, and I believe that this is an ongoing process in the world. It is part of the very intense digitalization in the world. Okay, thank you very much. Yasin Kahramaner, what does digital onboarding mean for you? I mean, this sounded like a philosophical question, but what does it mean to you? Mr. Yücer emphasized that well. If you think about the pandemic, or before the pandemic, you had to leave office or leave home to go somewhere for any transaction, and maybe you had to wait in line. You would carry out your actual transaction, and for a public service or financial service, you had to go through this process in onboarding in order to receive that service. But now the service comes to you. You don't have to go anywhere for the service. The service actually comes to you. We can call it journey as a service. Now you have full control of the process. This is what digital onboarding means. I fully agree. And maybe I can, based on what Yasin said, I can say in the future, in the new period, people want to communicate very quickly. They want to be customers very quickly, or institutions want to onboard new customers very quickly. And in the past, maybe this was a matter of days, but today it's a matter of minutes. In such short time periods, onboarding or establishing the customer's relation with the institution is only possible in such short amounts of time with digital onboarding and the KYC technologies which back it. In that case, I come to our second question. Digital finance and KYC. It is one of the top topics. It's one of the emergence points of KYC. So in access to digital finance, is KYC needed? Why and how? Is it a must or is it required? When we look at this process, this is how I approach it. Companies, what is their purpose? What do they want to do? A company which wants to offer a financial or a digital service, a fintech or any institution of financial service, when they're founded or when they initiate their operations, what is their goal? Of course, to offer their service to the highest number of people as possible, inclusiveness, Of course, it's not possible that I only want to offer financial services to the people in my vicinity, in my neighborhood. So if you have this expectation of inclusiveness and you would like to bring your service to broad audiences, digitalization and effective use of digital channels is a must today. Is it necessary? No, but if you really want to expand and grow, and if you would like to, as I said, bring your service to wide masses, you have to include digital onboarding. Of course, it is one of the required, one of the musts. Digital finance is digital, as the name suggests. So many institutions don't have branches anymore, or they do not have a physical access points. Digital onboarding and KYC becomes a must in this regard. What do you think, Yasin? In terms of inclusiveness or being able to access different areas, it gives us great advantages. On the other hand, there is another structure that is developing. Normally, I will not say not branchless banking, but physically speaking, certain transactions may still need to be physical, but maybe we will start shifting to a period of kiosks. Branches will turn into smaller kiosks, and in some places, not maybe through the mobile phone of the customers, but through special devices like ATMs or somewhat bigger kiosks which are secure. In such kiosks, you will be able to receive unattended services. It will not require the same things in the branch, and maybe such services will be possible in the future, or maybe with different devices, the KYC process will be carried out for different documents or with different devices. It will not have to be the smartphone, but with different devices, we will be able to do things with remote access. That is correct. There are a few banks which have some designs for such kiosks, to my knowledge, because I have heard this from a few places that I'm in close contact with. So I agree with you. Maybe physical branches will not be anymore, but there may be many kiosks around us, and maybe when we have to go to a branch, for instance, for a check, maybe you will be able to do it through that kiosk. Of course, we have entered a bit quickly, but before we go to the third question, I would like to also introduce your companies to the audience. What does ArcSigner do? When was it established, Yasin? Of course, ArcSigner was established in January 2015. Basically, we work with digital transition. We work with its two main elements: e-signature or digital signature technologies. Secondly, identity verification or identification technologies. And being able to offer these in an integrated way. In the first step, verifying the identity and then some other verifications and making the signature and completing the process. We're not a project company, we're a product company. We have different solutions. We are producing hardware as well, locally developed hardware, and we make it possible to use them at different locations. Our main philosophy, our motto, ArcSigner, security, where security meets simplicity. We want to simplify the lives of the consumer. This is what we like thinking about, or what we do development on. Secure solutions, not only in a way that computer engineers can understand, but rather more accessible technologies which everyone can understand and use. The vision, the purpose of our company is this. This is the sentiment that we would like to give. We always target end users. We have a lot of B2B and B2C customers. 10 million people in Turkey use our solutions. We have close to 4,000 institutional users, more than 280 institutional users. But we say, please forgive us, even if it's B2C or B2B, we want to reach B2B2C or B2G2C. We always want to make the lives of the consumers easier with solutions that do work. That's amazing. Kadir, what about you? As IHS Technology, we are a value-added business partner, especially for the IT industry. For the digital transformation process, we offer the solutions that businesses need as a turnkey project that add value. This could be about fraud detection or mobile device or endpoint management or information security, identity access, or IT services on the cloud like hosting or backup, or IT entirely on IHS Cloud or being procured as a service from IHS. We have different projects, and for 5 years now we have started creating locally developed software for fraud detection and digital onboarding. For that reason, as we continue our value-added services, we also want to offer the software that is created by Turkish engineers both to the domestic market, also to international markets, and to bring Turkish software with the rest of the world. We continue our initiatives, and recently we have established fraud.com, a brand. So what we want to get at the end of the day is that any institution in the world, when it comes to preventing fraud, however software that they need, they will be able to procure it from a global marketplace, fraud.com. We're expanding our infrastructure and we advance our work. I should also mention that I closely follow both of you and I learn a lot from you, and it's a great honor for me to be with companies which actually do produce, because this is something that I really prioritize. These are two important colleagues from the industry that I respect a lot, and important companies. Okay, don't say people that I follow, because that would reveal my age. Maybe you're only a couple ages older than I am. I agree. ArcSigner, IHS, and Identifier seem to be competition in working in similar industries, but we cooperate and compete at the same time. We talk to each other, we exchange opinions with very important players of the industry. So in that regard, I believe this is we create significant technologies for our world. With that, let me talk about Identify very briefly, so that we can shift to the third question later. We are a company of 13 years. We're centered in Germany, established by Turks in Germany. We are a RegTech and Fintech company. Our past 5 years have entirely been on identity verification. There are different steps of it, like KYC 3, 5, 6, especially KYC 5 and 6 are areas where we serve in the EU with. We are one of the 4 main players in the EU, as I'm proud to say. We have Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Telekom, Schwarzkasse, and many other corporate clients. We focus on identity verification and transaction security, onboarding, becoming a customer, and then the transactions that are carried out in a secure way. and checking them in terms of transaction security. With that, I come to our third round. This time I'll start with Yasin, if possible. We talked about what KYC is and why it's important for digital finance. And with that, it's called sometimes CDD. The World Bank calls it customer due diligence, CDD, or we call it KYC. What are some of the main tools for KYC verification, and how do you think it has developed in recent years? There are a couple concepts that we should talk about: identity detection and verification. Identification or identity detection is, as we all know, I'm, for instance, registered on a system. I'm an existing customer of a bank in internet banking or on their CRM site. I'm registered already, and through different methods, could be my password or biometric methods, I sign in, and this is verified usually with three methods: with something that I know or something that I own, or something biometrical about me, a biometrical attribute. This is identification, but there is also a verification which is more original. We think it is the same thing, but authorization and identity verification are different things. This could be an authority, an authorized institution. They have a document, let's say, that they have organized. We're talking about physical documents, but now there are digital identities in Europe as well. So there is such a document which has been organized, and there is a person who claims to have ownership of that document, and this person has an identity. So within this triangle, we carry out a verification. First, is this really a document, a type of document, physical or digital, that we can accept? And secondly, is this an actual person, a physical person, or is it a fake? And then there is really a connection between these two. So this is a triangle that I try to verify. And I can use different methods. For instance, even if I talk to my computer right now, my webcam is on, I can present the document, the both sides of the document, or I can present other documents. I can show the document first, then I can check it against the photo of the person biometrically, and then are these really the same person? I can check through the web or through a mobile device. I can do this check. I don't have to do this identification remotely. I can do this at the kiosk, or I can do directly at my branch. Branches are where these all started. So identification and identity verification should be differentiated from each other. We have linked these to video calls and optical analysis or OCR analysis of the document. Or if we have a fraudulent document, we check whether there is similarity with the one that we already have. So BTK also used NFC by reading contactless, or especially in telecommunications industry, contact chips can also be used according to Information and Communication Technologies Authority. So there are different technologies involved. Yes, we are trying to do this in a simple way. This is a journey that should be completed as soon as possible. It should be maybe 5 minutes, because after 10 minutes, I believe there are other outcomes, because people don't want to continue the journey. So authorization, verification, identification, with all of these, it should be convenient for the user. It's very new in Turkey, but for instance in Germany, it takes 45 minutes, for instance, some authentication takes 45 minutes, so it's joked about. I saw, for instance, what can you do as you're waiting for your identity to be verified? You can play backgammon, you can play chess. So yes, I fully agree with you. Digital onboarding or digital finance, these should be done within minutes so that it is worth the effort that you put out. Thank you, Yasin, for this great service. Kadir, what would you like to add? Yasin gave great detail already. I would like to add something about the progress that we have made, because when it comes to tools, Yasin already gave all the details without missing anything. But when it comes to identification, there has been development in the past few years. In line with the consumption habits and expectations of people and needs of the user. So it was necessary. We just discussed whether it was needed in the previous question. It's not a must, but you still have to do it. It's a weird situation because the new generation want to see a very rapid performance from the services that they use. They want them to be convenient and not take too long. And if you have a center, a physical location, people coming there or people receiving the service wherever they are. There is a very significant time saving and convenience factor. Of course, people, once they get used to something, they forget about the past very easily. For instance, digital onboarding, when you're on the 7th minute, they wouldn't say, oh, if I went to the branch, it would take me an hour to go there, an hour to complete my transaction. So 7 minutes is nothing or 40 minutes is nothing. No, consumers don't say this. They always want to take this fastest or most convenient service. For this reason, to keep up with this, we see the development of environmental peripheral services as well. For instance, the NFC adapter rate in mobile devices has increased from 20% to 70% in the past 5 years, and it will reach 100% because in any industry or any service, if there is a remote identification and your device is not a mobile device that can support such services, usage ratio will decrease. So not only fintechs, but such tools that fintechs use, the kiosks, the smartphones, the computers, their technology, they are developing in recent years to keep up with such technologies. So I wanted to add that. Thank you very much. I would like to make a small addition as well. Yasin expressed it quite well. In KYC, there is a significant triangle, and this triangle is like this, similar to the pillars of Delphi. For instance, documents, whether the document presented is authentic, it's a good, valid document. Secondly, is the person presenting the document, is there a connection, is there a compliance with that person and the document that they're presenting? And then another important element is consent. It's very new in Turkey yet, but in Europe we have a lot of experience regarding this issue. For instance, we say when there is identification, the person should be alone there. We turn on the camera right away to see whether there's anyone around. A few weeks ago, a case took place. There was an identification transaction which was successful. This happened in a bank. And at the second approval, the second approver noticed a figure behind that person in the mirror, a person who's hiding, and this makes the identification invalid and authorities are warned. This doesn't exist in Turkey yet, but with increasing use, I expect that the person's ID is correct, he is the right person, but at the time he is maybe being coerced into this identification to open an account somewhere. The system should detect this as well, and when necessary, legal authorities should be alerted when necessary, or law enforcement should be alerted, so that the person applying or the person who is trying to establish the connection could have experience about money laundering or financing of terror in the past, whether the person is included in any list. This is called sometimes fact checking. Is the person able to pass such tests? This is another important element within KYC. This being carried out in a branch or in a physical location is not always easy. I always say digital onboarding or eKYC is 5 or 6 times more secure compared to KYC in the branch. It's much more reliable. Otherwise, you leave it to the teller at the branch or the person who is taking your photo. It's all only up to their verification. So our time is running out. The last point that you have mentioned, I think we should go into a bit more detail of it. We always talk about the advantages that we offer to customers. Both this is your area and Kadir's area as well. When it comes to fraud, we are providing the most secure channel to banks. Exactly. For instance, when there is a judicial case, now we have detailed camera captures, and we have the meeting with the person. These things are actually a best method to decrease fraud for any bank. Maybe you have more experience on this. So anyone who would like to fight against fraud should use such methods. That's correct. When it comes to fraud, eKYC is so efficient that even accountants and notaries have digital onboarding and eKYC, which means this is one of the points of the next question as well, the future of eKYC. It can be used for the transactions or university registrations. It's so secure. Maybe this will be a repetition, but when you go to any bank branch, you are only as secure as the attention of the person there, the employee there. But on the other hand, you have OCR, AI, the smartphone, the people behind it, the AML specialists, filtration. There are tons of tests which fraud teams look into. This has 2 important advantages. First, the institution is protected against people with ill intentions, and secondly, the individual is protected against possible risks. We read many news on newspapers every day, and no point in mentioning them here, but in this regard, it's a very protective measure as well. So thank you very much for reminding that. That was a significant point. So that brings us to our 4th question. I have given you a clue on what the 4th question would be. From your perspective, in future years, what do you think about the future of digital onboarding and eKYC? That's one question. And secondly, what are some of the challenges or opportunities that you observe? Let's start with you, Yasin. I can talk about our 2022 and 23 agenda. We always did KYC remotely. Now we will start using it efficiently in branches and kiosks as well, as the immediate topic that I see. And the second one is not using it only for identification and authentication, but also using it as an alternative solution to signing documents, as Kadir said at the beginning, removing wet signature entirely. E-signature and digital signature solutions are produced by our company. Conventionally, only if you had wet signature you could ask for your rights, claim your rights, judicially speaking, or you can start a judicial process. And now, over time, in other places, not only for onboarding, but for other steps, this will be possible for use as well. For 22 and 23, this is the progress that we observe. I fully agree. Thank you. Kadir? I can talk about a couple points. Research shows us that currently 30% of financial institutions do digital onboarding, but in 23 it will be 85%. Not in 2028, only in 2023. This is only a few months away because time flies. So it will spread very quickly, and it will be the standard method of identification or verifying people's identity. For many industries which serve individuals and institutions, this will be the new standard. Another topic is, for instance, if you are to use e-signature, as Yasin Bey would know better than I do, there are certain authorities, e-signature providers, or for identity verification, there are certain authorities, certain providers, and this is provided as a service. I believe that in the future this will be mentioned more. All institutions, one by one, will change their mobile application rather than having their own flows in their processes. I will say, I'm an institution, I don't have a mobile app, I don't need it either, so I will procure this as a service from outside. When they make this decision, there will be service providers that they can do this. Of course, providers who have gone through the legal processes and have received their accreditation from legal authorities. So this will be procured as a service from service providers. For instance, Ali Haidar will say, I have a new customer, can you verify the identity? And I will verify that identity and say, okay, you can take this person as your customer, or you can make the signature, whatever the process is. I believe it will come to this at a certain point. I agree. In addition to what you have said, we are talking to the most significant players in the industry, but when it comes to identification or authentication, it's a serious issue. And Kadir, as you said, accreditation is important so that everybody understands the significance. Just like in Turkey, in Germany, having the accreditation about the companies which authenticate are really competent and their processes really fulfill the highest level of security, because these companies are in the business of identification or identity verification, so that we can be a customer of a company securely as individuals. To wrap up very briefly, we don't see it only as digital finance in terms of the future of eKYC. In 2026, this will be a market of $50 billion, only digital onboarding and eKYC. So from gaming to tourism, or from transport to airline companies or universities to education institutions, in many points KYC will be compulsory. And we have metaverse coming up, as you know. So, for instance, we have already started about authentication or identity verification for metaverse for a few banks, both in Turkey and in Europe. To be the first financial institution or first bank in metaverse, they're working, which means we have to make more effort and work harder. So I think both of you, if you have any comments, we can have them. Otherwise, we can close the session. Thank you very much for the time. It was a great pleasure to be with you. It was very enjoyable. And we hope to have a healthier 2022. That's great. Yasin. I thank you as well. This was very enjoyable. We forget about metaverse. It's a big topic that is coming up. So thank you for reminding us.
Ben ne diyorum biliyor musunuz?
When metaverse is mentioned, always say, we always talked about digitalization, but it went so far that physical is completely going out the window. Not even hybrid, but will completely be 100% digital. Exactly. With that, let's say we are safer and more digital in 2022. And thank you. And we thank IWF participants.
Görüşmek üzere, hoşça kalın.
Görüşmek üzere.